Imagine this. You wake up completely exhausted after a full night of sleep.
Yeah, which is the worst feeling.
Right. And then, like, your hands are doing this weird fine tremor thing when you're just trying to hold your coffee mug.
Just out of nowhere.
Exactly. And later, you're driving to work, minding your own business, and for absolutely no logical reason, you just burst into tears.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Your immediate, completely rational thought is probably, I am burning out. I need a doctor. Like, something is physically wrong with me.
Right, because that's how we're trained to think.
But what if there's a framework and an ancient, highly complex way of looking at the cosmos that argues you aren't sick at all? What if you are actually just, upgrading?
It is such an incredibly compelling counter-narrative, I think, to how we usually diagnose our own discomfort.
Oh, for sure.
In our modern hyperproductive culture,
Yeah.
any physical friction is immediately labeled as a problem, right? Like
Wow.
something to be medicated or optimized away.
Yeah, a glitch in the system.
Precisely. But we're looking at a fascinating source text today called The Physical Signals of Your Spiritual Awakening. And it offers a radically different perspective on these exact symptoms.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We are taking the confusing, messy physical symptoms you might be experiencing right now and decoding them through the lens of this text.
Which is so needed right now.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this because the core thesis here completely flips the script on personal growth.
It really does.
We are conditioned to believe that transformation happens in the mind first, right? Like you read a self-help book, you have a mental breakthrough, and then your life changes.
Right.
But this source argues the exact opposite. It claims that spiritual transformation doesn't start with a conscious realization. The body always knows first.
Yeah, and the body always reacts first. It prioritizes the somatic experience over the intellectual one.
Which is hard for us, I think.
Oh, absolutely. We put so much value on the intellect, we're constantly waiting for that grand aha moment to rewire our brains overnight.
Just magically fix everything.
Right. But the text suggests that your physical vessel has to prepare for the energetic shift before your mind can even comprehend it.
It's like the hardware has to update before the software can run.
That's a great way to put it. And it describes the intense physical sensations you might be feeling as well, they call it a karmic burn or a final release.
A karmic burn, that sounds intense.
It does. But the central premise is that you aren't stuck. Your physical form is essentially under construction. And the text provides a very specific timeline for this too.
Right, the dates.
Yeah, it points to a rare, highly volatile window of astrological activity happening right now, specifically between late April, around April 25th or 27th, and May 16th.
Which means we are right in the thick of it, like right now.
Exactly.
Now, the source outlines 7 specific physical signals that occur during this exact window.
Yeah.
But I don't want to just list off symptoms like we're reading a medical dictionary.
No, that wouldn't be helpful.
Right. If we're going to understand why the ground feels like it's shifting beneath you right now, we need to understand the mechanism. We need to look at what this text claims is actually driving these changes.
Yeah, and to understand the micro changes happening in the body, the text requires us to zoom all the way out to the macro shifts happening in the sky.
The big picture.
Exactly. It cites some massive astrological movements as the catalyst for this specific time period. The most significant one is the planet Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini.
Okay, so Uranus.
Right. In the astrological framework, Uranus represents sudden awakening, rebellion, electricity, and radical change.
It's the wild card.
Total wild card.
Yeah.
And its entry into Gemini is monumental because Uranus takes 84 years to complete an orbit.
Wait, 84 years?
84 years.
So literally almost no one currently alive has experienced this specific transit as an adult before.
Precisely. It is a completely foreign, energetic signature for the vast majority of the population.
That is wild.
And Uranus will remain in Gemini for the next 7 years. Now, Gemini is the sign that rules communication, information processing, and crucially, the physical nervous system.
Ah, okay. The physical wiring.
Exactly. And at the exact same time, the text notes another major alignment. Jupiter is currently exalted in the sign of Cancer.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there. I hear the word exalted thrown around in astrology, but what does that actually mean? It sounds like, I don't know, someone getting knighted.
That's actually not a bad way to think about it, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In astrology, planets are said to rule certain signs, but they are exalted in others. Think of exaltation, like A VIP guest arriving at a luxury hotel room that was designed perfectly for their specific tastes.
Oh, I like that.
They function at their absolute highest capacity there. Now, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, amplification, and abundance.
Making things bigger.
Right. And Cancer is the sign associated with the mother, the home, deep feelings, and our most tender inner landscapes.
So when the planet of massive expansion is treated like a VIP in the realm of deep emotion?
Your emotional capacity is forced to stretch
Mm.
drastically.
Wow. Okay, so we have this electric rebellious energy from Uranus hitting our nervous system and this massive magnifying glass from Jupiter being held over our emotional center.
That's a lot.
That sets a pretty intense stage. And according to the text, the very first physical effect of this combination, our first signal, is a profound, almost paralyzing feeling of heaviness in your limbs.
Yes.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. Like, how is feeling like you have lead weights in your shoes a sign of spiritual progress?
That's a fair question.
To anyone dealing with reality, feeling heavy just means you're exhausted.
Yeah.
It means you need more sleep or, I don't know, a double shot of espresso.
It does seem completely counterintuitive. But the author makes a very careful distinction here between clinical fatigue and what they call groundedness.
Groundedness.
Right. This heaviness isn't a lack of energy, it's a gravitational pull. You are literally being anchored to the earth.
Okay, anchored.
The text uses a brilliant analogy of a tree in the dead of winter.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. If you look at an oak tree in January, on the surface, it appears completely dormant. Like nothing is happening. If you didn't understand how seasons worked, you might assume the tree was dead.
Right, just bare branches.
But what is happening underground?
The roots are working.
Exactly. The roots are frantic. They're extending deeper into the dark, dense soil, gripping onto the bedrock.
Because they have to.
They have to.
Hmm.
Because the tree knows that spring is coming, and it knows that the massive burst of new leaves and branches will make the tree top-heavy.
Wow.
If it doesn't spend the winter building a deeper foundation, the spring growth will cause it to uproot and collapse.
That is such a powerful image. The text argues your body is doing the same thing. It is pulling you down to secure a heavier foundation for the growth that is imminent.
Exactly.
So when you feel that intense gravitational drag, the text is saying you shouldn't try to biohack your way out of it.
Definitely not.
You shouldn't chug caffeine or force yourself into a high-intensity workout. Your body is just doing the underground work.
Let the roots grow.
Right. And if the heavy foundation is the first step, it makes sense that the next step involves the internal wiring.
Yes, moving up the tree, so to speak.
If we follow this logic from the roots in the earth to the branches, the text points out a really specific, almost bizarre symptom for signal number 2. Fine motor twitches.
Yes. The text highlights a subtle inner tremor. You might notice it when you were trying to hold your hand perfectly still.
Or pouring coffee, like we said earlier.
Exactly. Or you might get a random twitch in your eyelid, your fingers, or even down your spine. It isn't described as painful, but it is deeply noticeable.
And how exactly does the text explain this? Because if my hand starts shaking, my first thought isn't spiritual awakening. My first thought is neurological issue.
Which makes total sense, but it circles back to Uranus and Gemini.
Ah, the nervous system connection.
Right. Medical astrology is an ancient discipline that maps the zodiac to the physical body. In this system, Gemini explicitly governs the arms, the hands, the fingers, the lungs, and the entire nervous circuitry.
Okay, so it's a direct hit.
What's fascinating here is when you introduce Uranus, which acts as the cosmic equivalent of a lightning bolt into the sign that governs your physical wiring, the text argues that you are quite literally experiencing an electrical upgrade.
An upgrade. The source uses an analogy here that I think makes this incredibly visceral.
The smartphone one.
Yes. It compares these tiny physical tremors to a smartphone updating its operating system.
It's so accurate.
When you hit install update, what happens? The screen flickers, the phone gets hot, the apps stop working, and for a few minutes, the device is completely useless.
It looks totally broken.
Right, but it's actually deleting old, obsolete code and installing a framework that runs faster. The text is suggesting your nervous system is doing a hard reboot. The old ways you used to grasp at control, the physical tension you held in your hands and spine, it's loosening up. Your body is learning a new way to physically hold the world.
But this raises a really critical question about how humans actually experience a reboot like that.
Oh, we panic.
We do. Normally, when our physical hardware starts glitching or twitching, our software, the mind goes into overdrive. We start panicking. We start WebMDing our symptoms.
Naturally.
But the text notes that during this specific window, the opposite is happening.
Right. Which brings us to the third signal. Instead of anxiety, the text points to a profound mental suspension.
So weird when you feel it.
It is. Alongside the physical twitches, there is this sudden, bizarre lack of urgency. The constant rehearsing of conversations in your head, the manic obsession with your to-do list, it just evaporates.
It's gone.
You feel incredibly slow, blurry even. So what is causing that?
The underlying logic the author uses for this mental shift is the movement of Mercury through Taurus, specifically from May 2nd to May 17th.
Okay, Mercury and Taurus.
Right. Mercury dictates how we think, how we process logic, and how we communicate. Taurus is the archetype of the bull. It is fixed, earthy, methodical, and arguably the slowest moving energy in the zodiac.
So when the planet of speed reading hits the sign of the slow-moving bull, it basically hits a brick wall.
Essentially, yes.
Mm,
Taurus energy is fundamentally opposed to over-intellectualizing.
it doesn't want to rush.
No, it doesn't want to think its way to an answer. It demands that you feel your way there. By pulling Mercury through Taurus, the astrological framework suggests your analytical mind is being intentionally sedated.
Intentionally sedated.
The forced surrender. You're being asked to stop rushing, stop calculating, and trust the implicit knowledge of the physical body.
If you are listening to us right now and you've been sitting at your desk this week feeling like you've completely lost your edge, or you keep walking into the kitchen and forgetting why you're there.
Which happens to the best of us.
Right. But you're not getting dumber. You're getting deeper.
Yeah.
Your conscious mind is literally taking its hands off the steering wheel.
Yes.
But if your analytical mind is finally quiet, if it starts acting like a bouncer at the door of your consciousness, it leaves a massive open space.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Always.
When the intellect stops policing your experience, everything that was suppressed immediately rushes in to fill the void.
Which perfectly explains why the next major symptom, signal number 4, is spontaneous tears.
Yeah, this one catches people off guard.
Completely off guard. We're talking about crying for absolutely no reason. You're folding laundry, or you see a commercial for dog food, or you're just standing in the shower and suddenly the dam completely breaks.
And you're just sobbing.
Yes, you aren't even consciously sad about anything specific. So how does the text explain this sudden flood?
This is where we return to Jupiter in Cancer. Remember, we established that Jupiter acts as a massive amplifier in the emotional realm of Cancer.
The VIP guest.
Right. The text reframes these sudden tears. They aren't necessarily grief over a current event. They are a literal thaw. A thaw. The author argues that every time in your life you swallowed your anger to keep the peace, or held back tears to appear professional, or bottled up heartbreak because you didn't have time to process it, well, that energy didn't just disappear.
Let me guess. It got stored in the body.
Yes. It becomes trapped in the physical tissue as density. The framework views Jupiter's current alignment as the introduction of energetic heat.
Okay, let's make this tangible. It's like you've been carrying around these heavy, packed moving boxes for years, right?
Yeah.
And now Jupiter is finally making you set them down and unpack them. It's messy, but it's a relief. You've just had these frozen, compacted layers of old grief and stress buried deep in your tissue for years. It's solid ice.
That's a great way to look at it.
But Jupiter acting as this sudden heat means the permafrost is finally melting. When you start weeping in the grocery store over a song, you aren't just crying. Your body is literally draining off decades of melted runoff.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize the mechanism. It is the physics of emotional release.
You're shedding the density.
Exactly. You are shedding density. But the text points out that the body can't do all of this heavy lifting while you are awake and walking around.
Too many distractions.
Right. The conscious mind, even when slowed down by Taurus, still gets in the way. Which leads us to signal 5, one of the most disruptive physical signals. Erratic sleep patterns.
This one is incredibly common right now. People are experiencing two extremes. Either you are crashing at 8 p.m. and sleeping like a rock.
Which sounds nice, honestly.
Right? Or, and this seems to be the really pervasive one, you are jolting wide awake right at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, completely alert.
The author traces this disruption directly back to Uranus. Because Uranus governs electricity and sudden shifts, its influence on the nervous system inherently disrupts the pineal gland.
Hold on, let's clarify that. The pineal gland is the tiny pine cone-shaped gland in the center of the brain that produces melatonin, right? It regulates our circadian rhythms based on light. How does a distant planet disrupt a biological gland?
Well, and esoteric anatomy, the pineal gland is also considered the third eye, the seat of intuition and spiritual connection.
Ah, I see.
The text posits that during sleep, the body performs the vast majority of its energetic clearing. When you are going through a profound shift, like the one happening between April and May, there is a massive backlog of karmic residue to metabolize.
All those unpacked boxes.
Exactly. Old identities you are shedding, toxic attachments you are breaking, the literal permafrost you just mentioned. Your body has to process all of that. So, crashing early and sleeping deeply makes perfect physiological sense. Your body requires the energy to do the excavation work.
But what about the 3 a.m. wake-ups? If my body needs sleep to do the work, why is it violently waking me up in the middle of the night?
The text explicitly refers to 3 a.m. as the witching hour. In this framework, 3 a.m. is the time when the energetic veil between the physical and the spiritual is at its thinnest.
The daily distractions are gone.
Exactly. The collective consciousness of your time zone is asleep. Your own analytical mind is too groggy to put up its usual defenses.
So it's essentially the only time your soul can get a word in edgewise.
Basically, yeah.
Which means if you are bolting awake at 3 a.m., the worst possible thing you can do is aggressively fight it.
Absolutely.
If you grab your phone and start doom scrolling, or lie there stressing about how terrible you'll feel in your morning meeting, you are entirely missing the point of the wake-up.
You're fighting the process.
The text suggests you just lie there. You don't have to meditate or do a ritual, just exist in the quiet and see what thoughts float to the surface.
It demands a complete surrender to the discomfort. And if you can surrender to the heavy limbs, the nervous system twitches, the mental fog, the random tears, and the sleep disruption, what happens next?
Right, what's on the other side?
Once you clear out all that old karmic density, what remains?
Emptiness. Which brings us to the 6th signal. And in our dopamine-addicted modern world, emptiness feels terrifyingly similar to boredom.
It really does.
And the source warns that this is perhaps the trickiest phase to navigate. You suddenly feel completely apathetic toward things that used to excite you. Your favorite hobbies feel flat.
Everything feels gray.
Right. Your daily routines, which used to provide a sense of comfort, now just feel like a suffocating cage.
It is incredibly easy for the analytical mind to look at that apathy and diagnose it as depression. But the text makes a vital distinction here. This isn't depression, it is graduation.
Graduation, I love that reframe. But
Yeah.
what actually caused the graduation?
The text points to an astrological event that occurred earlier in the window, on April 17th, an Aries stellium.
A stellium. Okay, let's define that for anyone who isn't deep into astrology. A stellium is basically a cosmic pileup, right?
That's a good visual, yeah.
It's when 3 or more planets are clustered together in a single zodiac sign, concentrating a massive amount of that sign's energy into one specific area of your life.
Correct. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is cardinal fire. It is the archetype of the warrior, the spark of initiation, and fierce independence.
It's pure fire.
Yes. When you had a stellium, a massive concentration of planetary energy in the sign of fire back in April, the text argues it acted as a controlled burn.
A control burn.
It scorched away everything in your life that was inauthentic. Every habit you maintained just to please other people, every belief you inherited but didn't actually agree with, every version of yourself you were playing out of obligation, it was burned away.
But here's the problem with a fire. Once it burns everything down, you are just left with ash. You can't immediately plant new seeds in hot ash.
Which is precisely why you feel the profound boredom. In agriculture, there's a practice called leaving a field fallow.
Oh, right. Letting the soil rest.
Exactly. You intentionally leave a piece of land unplanted for an entire season so the soil can rest, remineralize, and restore its nutrients. If you constantly force a field to produce crops year after year, the soil dies.
It gets depleted.
Right. The boredom you are experiencing is your internal landscape lying fallow. The fire cleared the brush, but the ground needs time to rest before the Taurus new moon on May 16th, which is the astrological moment for planting new seeds.
So when you feel that crushing apathy, the worst thing you can do is panic and try to fill the void with cheap distractions.
Just sit with it.
Right. Don't immediately download a new dating app or take on a massive project at work or force yourself to start a new hobby just to feel something. You have to honor the fallow field. You have to just sit in the empty space.
Yes, because if you can tolerate the emptiness of the fallow field, you will eventually detect the 7th and final physical signal the text outlines. And this one is profound.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Underneath the heaviness, beneath the twitching hands and the random tears and the utter boredom, you'll begin to feel a quiet, unshakable hope.
But wait, how can you feel hope while simultaneously feeling bored and exhausted? That seems like a paradox.
It is a paradox to the analytical mind because the mind requires empirical evidence. The intellect says, I will feel hopeful when I see the money in my bank account, or when I get the job offer, or when the relationship is secured.
We want proof.
Exactly. We demand to see the destination before we allow ourselves to feel optimistic about the journey. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text concludes with a beautiful subversive mechanism. Your physical body can feel momentum long before your analytical mind can see the results.
Your body can feel the momentum before your mind can see the results. That is the core of this entire framework, isn't it?
It really is.
That deep, steady, almost inconvenient hope that bubbles up when logically your life looks like a mess. That is your physical vessel's way of translating the energy. It's your body telling your brain, I know the old structure burned down and I know we are in the dark right now, but the ground isn't collapsing beneath us. It is actually rising to meet us.
It is the ultimate validation of the physical experience. It demands that we trust the intelligence of the body. As we move closer to the May 16th new moon in Taurus that the text highlights, the invitation is to radically shift how we relate to our physical discomfort.
It changes everything. If you've been carrying this invisible weight around, if you've been walking through this bizarre fog of symptoms and wondering why you feel so incredibly off lately, you are not broken.
No, not at all.
The text is offering you permission to stop pathologizing your evolution. The fog you are walking through isn't a sign that you are failing. It is the necessary preparation for the momentum that is waiting for you on the other side.
The author is essentially asking the reader to stop fighting the current. Trust the slowness of the Taurus energy. Allow the spontaneous tears to thaw the permafrost.
Just let it melt.
Right. Make peace with the 3 a.m. wake-ups and the trembling hands as your nervous system rewires itself. If this astrological framework holds true, the new beginning you thought you were hopelessly delayed in reaching hasn't been delayed at all.
It's just been underground.
Exactly. It has just been entirely underground, furiously growing roots deep enough to hold the weight of who you are becoming.
And that leaves us with a totally different way to walk through the world. Most of us spend our entire lives acting like antagonists to our own bodies. We try to silence every discomfort with a quick fix.
A pill, a drink, a distraction.
Right. We take a pill to sleep, we drink a coffee to wake up, we scroll on our phones to numb the boredom. But what if we change the question?
It's a profound shift.
It really is. The next time you feel that unexplainable heaviness pulling you down, or that sudden urge to cry in the middle of a mundane Tuesday, instead of instantly asking, how do I fix this? What if you pause, get quiet, and ask your body, what are we preparing for?